and welcome to Camino Masterclasses, where we hear top tips and advice about doing the Camino de Santiago from those that know it best. I'm your host, Freddie Bowen, and I work for Camino Pilgrim at the UK's Camino Association, the Confraternity of St. James, a charity dedicated to providing information and support to anyone interested in the Camino de Santiago. Today's masterclass is all about how to prepare. It's a big topic, but hopefully by the end of the session, you'll feel equipped with the knowledge that you need to make your Camino. We're going to split the time into 4 sections. First, we'll attempt to answer the question, what is the Camino? Explain how it differs from other long distance hiking trails and describe what waits for us in Santiago. Second, we'll talk about the average daily routine on the Camino, how to structure your day and why. Thirdly, we'll be looking at packing lists, the thing we get the most questions about, what to take, what not to take, and how to minimize the amount of weight on your back if you are carrying your own rucksack, that is. And the fourth and final section will be an open Q&A where our live audience will get the chance to put their questions to our panel of Camino experts by typing them in the chat or using the raise hand button. Now, speaking of our panel, we have 4 hugely experienced, knowledgeable, and helpful volunteers talking to us today. I'll let them introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Angelica first?
Hi, good evening, everybody. As Freddie said, my name is Angelica. I usually live in Coventry, and my first Camino was in 2003, so it's a long time now. And there have been a few Caminos since, so you could say, I suppose, that I'm hooked a little. Right, Sue, over to you.
Hi, my name's Sue. I live in West Wickham in Kent. I've walked a number of Caminos, the Portuguese and the Frances, and I'm a volunteer also at the CSJ office in London. And Tony.
Hi everybody. My name's Tony. I've been walking for probably over 40 years in the UK and the continent and other parts of the world. I've walked the Camino de Ingles, and I'm also a volunteer with the CSJ. Over to Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm coming to you from Michigan. I'm an American pilgrim, and I started walking in 2009, and I'm leaving again in a couple of weeks for an Advent Camino.
I think we're all jealous, Anne, going walking this year. Yeah. And we're delighted to have you here with your knowledge about the Camino and the cathedral. So let's kick this off for tonight. So the agenda for today, like Freddie said, we're going to talk a little bit about the Camino in general, like how did it start, where is it, why do people do it, and so on. A little bit about the history, what it's like to be a pilgrim, and then some aspects of the pilgrimage that by experience and so are special to the Camino, like trust, the walking itself, beauty, the arriving and the cathedral, and then a typical day. And then a big chapter is Tony and Sue with their packing and equipment. And one thing I'd like to point out here, while we so happy to share experience and thoughts and ideas about the Camino, but just remember, take them as ideas for your own decisions you need to make when you set off. And feel free, any questions, to go into the chat, and Freddie and Kimberly, please let them know when we should address them. All right?
Will do.
All right, so the Camino. In a way, all routes are leading to Santiago. I don't know how many are logged on here tonight are from Europe, and probably for them it looks quite familiar that there is an extensive network of Caminos, but a lot of people are always surprised how many routes there are all across Europe, and I think that's already highlighting the importance the Camino had in its history. So, and the good thing is, once you're hooked, there's always another one to walk, so no shortage there. So what about the story of the Camino and how it all began? Anne, do you want to explain that in a bit more detail?
The story goes, and it depends on who you're willing to put your trust in, that at the beginning of the ministry of the apostles. Jesus sent them out to teach to the ends of the earth. And St. James took him seriously and walked all the way to Santiago and preached across Spain all the way to Finisterre. At his death, when he went back to the Holy Land and was martyred near Jerusalem, his followers brought his body back to Spain, and he was interred in Spain, as were they after they finished their ministry. The burial place was hidden for centuries and was rediscovered in the beginning of the 9th century, at which point the young man who found it went to the next most likely obvious person, which was the local bishop. And he told them that he had been brought to this spot by miraculous stars. So the bishop then determines that this is something extraordinary. He takes his information to the king, and the king comes to view the site, view the mausoleum. And among the three of them, they determined that these are indeed the remains of the Apostle St. James, making that king the very first pilgrim. There is some discussion about who really was the first pilgrim. Maybe it was the young man who found the spot. Maybe it was the bishop who came to the spot. But officially, if you ask most people, they will say it was the king because he traveled from Oviedo. Most interestingly, in the history of Spain, Oviedo and the kingdom of Asturias was the only kingdom never to fall to the North African forces that invaded the Iberian Peninsula. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. The king then, of course, had a small church built next to the mausoleum.
So yeah, so it grew into the city of Santiago, and huge numbers came to Santiago. And in a way, it rivaled Rome as a pilgrim destination. I think it was much more popular than Jerusalem because it was so difficult to get to Jerusalem, but even more popular than Rome. And also one of the typical things was that religious orders provided shelter along the way, be it the Templars. So lots of history here. And if you would like to find out more, I mean, there's lots of websites to that extent too. So, however, with Reformation and war, and we had also the Black Death, the numbers dwindled. When you look at pilgrimage in modern times, it's different. So nowadays, people of all faiths or none, they walk the hundreds, in some cases, hundreds of miles to Santiago with a variety of motives. And in some cases, people walk for months, not just weeks. So you have a huge mixture there of people going on the pilgrimage. But when we talk about pilgrimage, so what's actually the definition of a pilgrim? And us three people get 5 opinions, I guess. I guess the easy one for this purpose is to say a pilgrim is a person traveling to a sacred space. And a sacred place or space could be somewhere that brings all of us or any of us into a relationship with what's greater or more expansive than your own self. It could be a place that moves you, a place to dream about. And often the journey to that place becomes a destination. So it's no longer the relics that are the main motivation like they used to be in the Middle Ages. But I think one of the differences to the Middle Ages is also there was a lot of sin about, right, Anne? In the Catholic Church. So it was very important to travel for the religious reason. Yeah. Now, when you set out on pilgrimage, you set out on a physical journey. The word pilgrim could be from the Latin as a peregrinus, so you're being a stranger because you're moving across different countries, different areas of the country towards your destination. So you have the physical aspect, you are a stranger in a country, but it's also becomes a way of living and perhaps thinking. But the one question And Sue, did you feel like a pilgrim on your first Camino when you set off?
When I set off from Porto, I didn't feel so much a pilgrim leaving home. I sort of felt like I was still on a bit of a holiday. And then when we left Porto, which was where we left for our first Camino, setting out, it did feel different. So it didn't feel like I was on a holiday. I didn't know at that time what it felt like to be a pilgrim, but it certainly felt different for me, that I was doing a different kind of journey or experience, that was about to start. It wasn't a normal, we're laying on a sunbed for 2 weeks with a book. It was something completely different, out of my comfort zone. I'd never walked with a backpack before. So that whole thing was different for me. And it wasn't until I think we got to Santiago, I thought, oh gosh, I must be a pilgrim now then. So that was mine. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I don't know what their experience is like.
But that's it, isn't it? Everybody's is in a way unique. Yeah. And did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I had the idea of pilgrimage, and I had the idea of pilgrim, but it was when the first person walking past me wished me a buen camino that I realized I was in an amazing company of other like-minded people. And I thought that was pretty extraordinary. So I would definitely class that as the moment I realized I had become a pilgrim.
Yeah, because you have this connection, isn't it? People know what you're doing and so on. So it's something different from going for a walk in the Pennines or something. And you have the symbols, right? So you have, most people will have a shell on their rucksack. The shell being the symbol of the Santiago. But I think in the Middle Ages, it was the symbol you got when you reached Santiago as a way of your badge of completion, whereas nowadays most pilgrims have it on their backpack. I think it's great because people recognize what you're doing. Yeah. A lot of people will also take a walking stick, and some people swear by wooden walking sticks. I admit to using walking poles, the modern version. I don't know about you, Tony, using poles?
Yes,
walking
I'm
sticks?
a walking poles person.
Sorry, Tony?
I use walking poles, yes, like yourself.
Yeah. So some people really, really treasure them afterwards as well. So yeah, those are the typical symbols. And I guess that'll be topic when you talk about routes. Most people will have a pilgrim passport as well to collect stamps on the way. But of course, that's a bit more of a modern symbol. So coming back to the motivation. So in the Middle Ages, it was purely religion, to see the relics and the penitential aspect of it, because there was a lot of sin and perjury about. And nowadays, yes, there are people with religious motives, there are people with spiritual motives, some go for the challenge, some might go for the holiday aspect, and there are still some who use a Camino for penitential, as a walk for I think mostly juvenile crime. That's still a project in Belgium. But basically there's a multitude of motivations and reasons out there why people walk the Camino. So, and I guess it's not, most people probably say there are several ones that apply to them. So moving on to some aspects of the Camino, why it's so special. So I've just grouped them a little bit. And this one is a big one, I think. It's a topic of trust. So one of the most important aspects, we believe, to come with an open heart and mind on the Camino, to let yourself be surprised. So try to be open to the experience, because there's so much that you can encounter and take in. So one of the things that I think within probably an hour or two, you get so used to is that there are waymarks out there. They could be the yellow arrows or other shell symbol and so on. And they really give you the trust that you find the way to Santiago. And in a way, it's amazing. You have all this route network across Europe, and there is this secret code, if you like, of following arrows or symbols to find your way through cities, towns, in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know about you, but for me, it was within a very short period of time, you just trust them. That your experience too, Sue?
Yeah. I mean, directly straight from leaving Porto, you see the little shell symbol on the floor, on curbs, on walls, hedgerow, sort of like fences, posts, anywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah. So any fear you might have had, oh my God, I need a map and stuff, that goes very quick because you start trusting them straight away. Yeah. The other thing is mutual trust, and that could be with fellow pilgrims, like Anne already mentioned, like you get greeted with Buen Camino and so on, but also with local people. You trust the encounters, you're sharing conversation and meals and so on. So it's in a way a mutual trust that might not exist in your day-to-day life. Of course, it depends where you live. If you live in a big city, it might be harder to trust people under normal circumstances. On the Camino, it tends to happen very quickly. And it's one of the great things about it. Trust that there will be a bed for the night, that you find somewhere to stay. Now, this photo was obviously taken pre-pandemic, and it's probably worth mentioning that while things are still a bit open, or as far as the pandemic goes, that a lot of people probably book ahead, if not for the whole trip, but from one day to the next. But usually still the same, you trust that you find somewhere to stay. And that's one of the great things, isn't it? You don't need everything super prepared. Things will work out with just a little bit of advanced planning. And trust, the other one is that you're not alone. And you're not going to be alone on the Camino unless you walk a very, very, very remote route. Now, one of the questions, Tony, you probably don't get this question very often, but what is it like to walk on your own as a woman? So
you're right.
I think
you're right. Yeah. I don't get that question very often.
I thought you might. Yeah. This photo was taken on the Camino Frances, and as you can tell, that you're not on your own. There are people out there, and while you might walk on your own during the day, you meet people in the places like a coffee shop or a bar at nighttime and so on. So I think personally, I would say you're probably hard pushed not to make any contact at all. Anything you would like to add there, Anne, Sue?
Oh, I love to walk by myself. I much prefer to walk by myself.
Yeah.
I'm super slow. I'm the tortoise. I'm the slowest pilgrim ever. I mean, they're going to put me in the Guinness book for being the slowest pilgrim. But you're right. You meet up with people at night, and people will pass you, and ultimately you'll pass them, or you'll meet them in a cafe, and you develop a community, but you can distance yourself from them or align yourself with them as you need to. The pilgrimage has to be yours.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because it's so important to walk in your own rhythm. So that's just probably a piece of add-on here. If you go with somebody else, you probably agree in advance, like that you doesn't have to be all the time together, that it's perfectly okay to say meet you at lunchtime or meet you in the evening somewhere, so that you can walk your own rhythm and get that time to yourself if you so wish. And then the other one, trust aspect, is trust in your own abilities, that you can do this, that you get there. It's quite amazing at times what you're capable of, what the body is capable of. We just need that little bit of a kickstart, I guess, and trust our own abilities. And I think one of the other big aspects on the Camino is simplicity. It's, everything in one rucksack. Of course, there are more options of carrying luggage, but the majority, I would think, still take the one rucksack. And if you start further back, that's probably what you have to do anyhow. And I guess, I think we all made mistakes, especially on our first Camino. I'm expecting you all to not know, because I remember my very first one, I thought I was being really clever. And then I took a pair of jeans, thinking I would need something for the evenings. And after 4 days, the jeans became Bermuda shorts, which was a lot better than carrying them. But there are funny, everybody can tell a funny story about what they took and thought it was really important to take. The best story I always heard was Johnny Walker's, where he walks off with sets off with a shortwave radio, thinking he would have to have something to listen to in the evenings. So yeah, so the more you carry, the more danger there is of aches and pains, blisters. And then if you look at the rucksack just like a metaphor for life, so why would you want to carry all this stuff? Okay, now equipment, Tony and Sue, it's your topic for later on. I'm just trying to make the point here that keep it simple, then the whole thing becomes easier and more agreeable. Okay.
Absolutely.
I once left my second pen at an albergue because I determined that I didn't need 2 pens and that the weight was overwhelming.
Yes, and the other one is like you find so many in the early days when you start the Camino Frances, and the books that were left behind by people thinking they had to take a book with them and so on. So yes, we've all done it. Yeah. Simplicity also from the aspect, well, it's walking, isn't it? So it's one step after the other, and that's what it is about, just one step after the other, as simple as that. And then the other thing is like you become sort of, life is so much simpler, isn't it? So you're looking for a bench where you can have a rest. It's the sort of simple things. You don't need anything complicated. Just this opportunity to rest, like you see in this photo, small things like that. Yeah. And I'm talking of walking. Walking is lots of things, really. Walking is, well, you're moving, and that's step by step. You're getting there. It's also a time for thinking. I think plenty of people and authors and great writers get their ideas while walking, solve their problems and everything. So it's, and a few weeks on the Camino, it's great for that. It's also seeing. It gives you that, the walking pace gives you that time to digest and see what's going on around you. It's also time to remember people, events, whatever of your life. It's also time for accompanying others, because there might be stretches you walk with somebody else, you meet en route. There might be that hour you listen to somebody else or they listen to you. That gives you that something special, that connection with people, or something to think about life differently. And simply put, walking is living. Have I missed anything? Anything you would like to add?
No, that's covered it all.
Okay. Yeah. But of course, there are some challenges. But keep it simple, in the spirit of keeping it simple. They are there to be taken in their stride, like the aches and blisters. And this photo was taken one day in an albergue in France, and you can see the number of plastic bags around. It's all the kids spread out. And priority first to look at the feet and treat them. So yes, they are a challenge, but blisters and aches, the smaller your pack, I think the better the trip becomes, and the less of those aches and blisters. There might be other challenges. The route might not always be super exciting and super scenic, because remember, it's a pilgrimage. It's to get from A to B. And A to B crosses towns or cities. Yes, it also crosses super nice countryside, mountains, etc. But it's not a given that everything is wonderful, because it's not like walking in the Lake District, for example, that you walk there because you want beautiful scenery. The Camino will sometimes touch places and areas that are not so exciting, but actually these times can be the best times of the walk, because it gives you that space for switching off, thinking, following your own rhythm. And the other challenge could be the weather. And because the weather can never please all of us, right? It can be too hot, too wet, too windy, too cold, and all in one day. But like they say, there is no, what's the saying? There is no wrong clothes. No, there is no wrong weather. There's always only wrong clothes, right? And if you look at this happy pilgrim, he was quite miserable on that day. His solution to all the problems was just wear shorts, because when it rains, it's only the legs that get wet, right? But everybody has a different approach. So I think the challenge is to find your own way of dealing with these conditions. So for example, when it's too hot, leave earlier in the day, or make sure you finish at lunchtime before it gets too hot. If it's too cold, well, there's always another layer to put on. And I think that's a trick, to just adapt to circumstances. And then there are a few more challenges, which could be moving things, could be dogs, other animals, cars. This is your favorite section, I believe.
Yeah, my problem is with hunters. I have an issue with hunters, because I figure if I can see them, they're close enough to shoot me. I've never been shot by a hunter, and I think that they probably are not aiming toward me. It's just, I'm a writer and I tend to fictionalize a lot of what's going to happen. Like, the hunters are going to shoot me, they're going to carry me back in the back of their truck. And you tend to do that, especially if you walk by yourself. You're going to write your own movie. It's kind of fun though. And, the hunters actually gave me a recommendation for how to get in and out of the next town, which was helpful. So a lot of what you think is going to be a challenge turns out to sort of evaporate when you confront it.
And hunting is only at some parts, certain times in the year and in some regions. So it's never a universal problem. Car drivers tend to generally be quite considerate. And the dogs, well, I can only talk by my own experience, especially on the popular routes. In fact, I was walking one stage on the Portuguese 3 weeks ago. I think the dogs were so bored. So you knew the pilgrims were out on the boat again. The dogs were just bored, literally. Yeah.
But
so they're so used.
Car drivers are more likely to pull over and see if you need anything.
Yes, I think that's happened too. Yeah. So generally, nothing is a problem. You can all get around it. One challenge, though, that I feel is truly a challenge, and it's something everybody has to agree or come to a conclusion for themselves, it's technology. So we all love technology, right? We want to stay in contact with people and so on. But it's great, but how can we be really, and that's a question for you to answer, everybody, how can we be in the present if we are constantly distracted by technology? Just to post on Facebook, we have arrived, or post on Facebook, oh, I'm in this town, can anybody recommend a restaurant to me? It's a tricky one. Wi-Fi is everywhere in Spain. I think it's something you have to decide for yourself, but I guess it helps if you have thought about it in advance of setting off. Yeah. I think 20 years ago, when it wasn't so popular, or not many people had a mobile, and all you were doing was the odd text, you were much more in the evenings talking to people around you and sharing the meal, talking and sharing stories and so on. Now it's so easy to get distracted. So something to think about in advance of your Camino. And I think all in all, the biggest challenge is really the south, because you could go through a countryside like you see on the photo. It's very flat, you can see ahead. There's nothing distracting you. So it becomes something, it's down to you. And then again, just remember step by step to get there. And it works. Yeah. But the Camino is also beauty and mystery. And beauty is a word, I think, has an element of mystery. It's something we cannot really describe, but sometimes there are moments when it lets us recognize the truth about our lives and who we are. And these moments are special. And I think the Camino will provide plenty of those to you. And of course, they are different too for everybody. There could be the small things you just come across, like you see in this photo. It could be a magnificent space like a church, and it doesn't have to be a cathedral like that. It could be a quiet moment where you write in your diary or things like that, or reflect. It could be like spotting this in an early morning sunrise, something that's just so perfect from the lighting and so on. So everything comes together in these moments. And then beauty, of course, is in moments with others, when you share and have that experience with people. And then obviously there is a point in time when you arrive in Santiago, and obviously it's a place you looked forward to reaching. But then also I think, especially when you've been walking for days and weeks, in the last few days before arriving in Santiago, there's some sort of trepidation sneaking into this, I think, for most people, because it's, well, the walking is going to end, isn't it? So while the square in front of the cathedral is often very busy, but you do see very moving scenes like here, where people then embrace each other. They've made it safely to Santiago. And there is this joyful moment, people just celebrating that they've made it, because the physical pilgrimage to Santiago is over at that moment in time. They go to the pilgrim office to get their Compostela. But then there's also the cathedral. This is a square in front of it. And in a way, the cathedral is where you are expected. And Anne, I hand over to you now to talk a bit more about the cathedral.
I have a particular love of this particular church. This is a building that has fascinated me for quite some time. And I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about it so you know where you're going. I mean, this is really the object of desire, as my art history professor used to say. How it started, if you look at the image on the left, it's an artist rendering of the cathedral as it appeared when it was first consecrated. The cloister was built a few years later. You can see it there off to the right of the main church building. But effectively, the church you visit today doesn't look very much different. On April 21st, 1211, the cathedral was consecrated and 12 discs were installed. You can see the disc in the right image. They were installed over what were then the 12 doors into the building. It has the cross of the Kingdom of Asturias in the center, and each one of the 12 discs has a different Latin inscription around it. And if you see at the bottom, there's a bracket for small candles that are lit every year on the anniversary of the consecration. So that'll give you something to look for. So that's how it started. How is it going? It's going great. This building has just come out of a 10-year plus long renovation from top to bottom, where they even remeasured how far the south tower is leaning, which is a little unnerving, except that they follow it up immediately with, no worries, it'll be fine. Well, the south tower has been there since 1211, so I think it is going to be fine. But there are magnificent things to see and magnificent fun things to do, and the entire building becomes like a treasure hunt. The fun part right now is that we are in the middle of a holy year. So where do we start? A holy year is when the Feast of St. James, July 26, it falls on a Sunday. Is it the 25th? I guess it is the 25th. It falls on a Sunday. And
25th, yes.
Thank you, thank you. I have a birthday in my family that is not James, but so I can always confuse them. So it's when the feast falls on a Sunday and the holy door into the building is opened. And because of COVID, the Pope granted a special deal with the cathedral that the holy door could remain open for an extra year. So we are, in fact, only halfway through this holy year, even though we're almost at the end of 2021. The door will be open until the end of December in 2022. So that's the door on the left. Pilgrims will enter through that door, and step down into the building, at which point you will probably be guided toward the small staircase that will lead you to the crypt. And this is it. This is the thing. That small silver casket is believed to house the remains of St. James and his 2 followers, along with, remarkably, a small piece of mortar that is believed to be part of their first church. The last time this box was opened, as far as I know, was at the end of the 19th century, when the remains were identified once more by the Pope. And he issued a proclamation that the remains were indeed those of St. James. From there, you'll come up another little small staircase and you'll be able to see the altar. The main altar is completely covered in Mexican silver. It is from a bishop who was installed in Santiago in 1685 as a kind of a retirement gift. They wanted to give him kind of an easy retirement. Well, he was there for 30 years and he's responsible for most of the gilding in the building, as well as for installing the organs and the beautiful organ pipes that are overhead as you walk into the main body of the church. Now, depending on how many people are in the building at one time, because of COVID again, you may be ushered directly out of the building, at which point you would have to circle back and come into the main body of the church to view the altar. So that's where you start. Now, second only to the crypt is the Botafumeiro. It's one of the most famous things that you will want to see when you are in the church. The ropes hang to the side of one of the pillars. You can see there on the left. They actually were made by a fisherman's family for decades until recently they became synthetic, which is kind of sad. They look like the real deal, but they're actually synthetic because of the number of times that thing is swung. They were getting nervous that hemp ropes were not going to last. The Botafumeiro will be swung at the end of Mass, and it's at a random, you can't predict it, schedule. Sometimes it's because it's a feast that you may not know about, or that you may even know about. Sometimes it's because someone has brought an important group with them and they have made an extra donation to the cathedral to have it done for them. But it's a beautiful ceremony at the end of Mass where it will swing, as you can see in the right picture, within a few feet of the ceiling of the building. It's extraordinary. And there is a lovely hymn that goes along with it that is sung from the altar that reminds everyone that St. James is the patron of Spain. And it's something that makes people very, very, very proud. So now you've come through the holy door, you've paid your respects to the saint, you've seen the altar, and you've attended Mass. What do you do next? Take a quick tour. Do not just exit the building. It's an extraordinary building that houses centuries of Spanish history. You can light a candle for someone that you care about, or for yourself, or just in gratitude that you made it there in one piece, which is pretty extraordinary. You should visit the chapels. There are 18 of them, and each one of them houses beautiful artwork, paintings, sculptures, and the remains of the glorious dead. You can also spend a moment looking at what they call a reja, which is that great thing in front of each one of the chapels. It's a remarkable thing, and the metalwork is really beautiful. Most of it has been just recently restored, and it allows you to see into the chapel without necessarily having to go into the chapel. And then you might want to have a priest hear your confession. One of the lovely things is that the confessionals have been removed from the church, and now you can have your confession heard in one of the small chapels. I always recommend spending a few days in Santiago after your walk to decompress, to gather your thoughts, and to rest. The old town is filled with bars and restaurants and shops and souvenirs, and more importantly, your fellow pilgrims. You should visit the Cathedral Museum as well. If you would like to see the Portico de la Gloria, which is the magnificent entryway into the cathedral from that beautiful plaza that Angelica showed you before, you need to visit it through a guided tour through the Cathedral Museum. And it's very simple. You just go to catedraldesantiago.es, catedraldesantiago.es, and you can book a tour that way. The museum also has a magnificent tapestry collection. There is antique sculpture. There is sculpture that had been moved from earlier instances in the cathedral. It's pretty extraordinary. So Angelica, I'm going to give it back to you.
Yeah, so I hope we've whetted your appetite here, because there's so much to do and see in Santiago around the cathedral. Of course, some of you might be so much in walking mode and would like to carry on, and a lot do. So they walk another 3 days, or depending whether you go Finisterre and or Muxia, 3 or 4 days, and to the sea, because physically then that is you can't walk anymore unless you want to walk back again to where you came from. And then you obviously have that moment looking out to the sea, which is also pretty special. And I think the legend goes that before the Camino existed, that's what people did as part of a tradition. And Finisterre obviously means the end of the world, because people thought that truly was the end of the world. But it's like, yeah, no more walking. So that is quite special, because the Camino therefore is like, so what about the next Camino? Okay, so the job becomes like how to integrate the Camino experience into daily life when you go back, which can be a challenge. It's different for everybody. So just some things, I think what I've heard people do after walking their Camino, they go back and walk more often, because now you know your body likes walking, right? You volunteer as a hospitalero or hospitalera. I mean, all the associations offer, like the Americans, and they offer training, right, to become a hospitalero. Yes. CSJ does it. So there's opportunities there. You can tell others about your experience, whether they like it or not, I guess. They might not understand you though. You could try to be more in the present, like you had this experience where you were physically connected with with your environment, with people. So how about trying that in daily life? How about volunteering locally to give something back? It could be anything. It could be, what are you guys doing, Sue, Tony, Freddie? Yeah.
Volunteer at the CSJ.
Volunteer at the CSJ, yes. Yeah. Volunteer in a vaccination center. I'm just throwing things in what people could do. You could plan, and I think a lot of us do this, to plan your next Camino. Like you've seen the map at the start, there's always another route available to walk on. You could learn Spanish, right? Because English-speaking people tend to be a bit slack on that side. So how about trying to improve for your next Camino? Yeah. You could join an association. You could join the Camino Pilgrim CSJ, a good American company of pilgrims. Is that right, Anne?
Yes.
It's a Canadian company. Every country has an association. You could go on a retreat to reflect further on your experience. Oops. You could do lots of things. Okay. So one more aspect before starting on the packing is what's a typical day in pilgrim life like? Some pointers. They're pointers only. It actually is not a day that starts from early in the morning and the evening. It actually starts the afternoon before. So job number one is secure a bed, if not already booked in pandemic times. Have a shower to get washed. And while you do that, straight away wash your kit, socks, underwear, and so on, and look after your feet. Okay. And presumably most people will be hungry by that time, so check your options for dinner, but also a good idea to check options for breakfast the next morning, because if there's no breakfast, you might want to go and get some to a supermarket or a shop to get some food. Another thing that's really useful is to do the afternoon before, to check the way out of town for the next morning. So see where the first arrow is to give you that exit the next morning. And look at the route generally for the next day. So are there any coffee shops, bars, food options? So if not, plan the extra water, take the extra food. And then enjoy the evening with your fellow pilgrims. And then also, just before you go off to bed, prepare the rucksack for a quick exit the next morning. Believe it or not, plastic bags do rustle, and nothing is more annoying at 4 a.m. being waken up by some, dare I say, Germans for an early exit, rustling all their plastic bags. Some people sleep in their underwear and t-shirt for the next day, but again, that's all personal choice. And then the next day, before you go, put the sunscreen on, because I think it wouldn't be the first one who has forgotten and then get burned during the day when it's too late. Have your breakfast either in the alberg or in a bar if it's available. Walk again, step by step. Don't forget to rest occasionally during the day. Stop at your planned place for the night or when you're tired. Now, obviously, when you're tired, it's a bit COVID dependent, how easy it is to just stop when you feel like it. But again, that's a planning element of it. And then it starts again. Secure a bed, have a shower, wash your kit, repeat. Simple, isn't it?
Yes.
And before we hand over to the next section, Freddie, are there any questions, Freddie, Kimberly, we should answer now before the packing section?
Just a couple, really. We had one question about whether a recording of this will be made available afterwards, and the answer is yes, along with class notes will be sent out to everybody after today. And Gwen just wanted to add to your slide where you said the Camino is living, no, you said walking is living, or
Yeah.
there's various gerunds. Gwen wanted to add praying to that list as well.
Yeah, actually, really good point, because while you walk is with your feet doing the praying, yes. Yeah.
That's it so far.
Right, so I stop sharing now. Sue, Tony, over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Angelica. It was very thorough talk about what it means to be a pilgrim. And you've also covered rucksacks and packing. So I don't want to sort of repeat what you've been saying, but a lot of people listening now, what they're doing is they're looking for certainty. They're looking about what to put in their rucksack. What should I do? What sort of rucksack should I buy? Well, we can give you advice on that, but the choices are yours. You have to think about what sort of size rucksack you might need. You listen to other people's advice and make your own choices. But the fundamental thing which will come down to is you don't need a lot of stuff. You think you do, but you don't. As Angelica has said, people who've done Caminos, they'll all be telling the similar story about they set off with far too heavy a rucksack, and they perhaps either threw it away or posted it back home or gave it away or something, because you don't need as much gear as you think you do. It's just about changing of clothing, and which Sue will go through in a moment. So you're looking for certainty, but if you think back in life, a lot of those occasions when have been really special have been a surprise moment of uncertainty. You come across a cafe that you weren't expecting and have a wonderful time, or you miss the bus and wonder what to do, and then you come across either some friends or some new experience that's very memorable. So although we're looking for certainty about what to do, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that a lot of the things in life that are really good come from uncertainty. So yes, what to put in a rucksack. I'll hand over to Sue in just 1 second, but underpinning everything that we talk about as regards packing a rucksack is the weight. your rucksack needs to weigh between 5 and 10 kilograms. As Angelica talked, I did a walk across Scotland. I got all my kit in a big pile. I got my 90-litre rucksack, fitted it all in. It weighed 22 kilos. I took a few things out and set off. I'd completed it, but it was an absolute killer. I got back, weighed the book that I'd taken, that I'd never read, and a few other items. They came to 5 kilograms that I'd carried across Scotland and never used. So we've all done that. So when we say weight is king, that should underpin every decision you make about what to put in your rucksack. And on that note, I'll hand over to Sue for the next few minutes.
Yeah. So when I first walked my first pilgrim route, I took a few clothes that I thought I might need, and for in case of, or perhaps maybe I might need this, and I didn't use half of them. And again, I took too much, and so the next time I went on a pilgrimage, it was how light can I get my backpack? We went with some friends, and it was a real task. We sort of said, right, mine's down to 6, mine's down to 5. And so the second time I got my rucksack down to 5 kilos, and it was joyful. That's all I can say. It makes such a difference walking with a light backpack, where you know that what you have in your back is everything that you need. You haven't taken, well, I still took actually a couple of one extra item in particular, but I used everything, I wore everything, and everything was, to me, essential. So my rucksack this is a 33-litre rucksack. And so when I've got all my stuff in it, it's certainly not full. So if I wanted to take a sleeping bag, a lightweight sleeping bag, there's plenty of room in there for that. I chose this one just because it was comfortable. And the rest of my things I put in dry bags. So this contains all of my clothes for the whole time. So this would last me a month. And so I'll go through that in a moment. But I did have 2 dry bags, which are very handy for when it's either pouring down with rain and you know that no matter what, your clothes will stay dry. But also quite often in albergues or hostels, if the showers are overflowing and your rucksack is on the floor, it can often seep into that, and then all your clothes are wet. So I recommend these, and they don't rustle as much as plastic carrier bags, because believe me, the rustling at 4 o'clock in the morning is a thing, and it's not nice to experience.
And I'll just add to that, Sue.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, I won't bother with dry bags, I'll just stuff them in a carrier bag. That won't work. If you're out in the rain and your rucksack won't be waterproof, you need to have these dry bags just to keep the things that need to be dry, probably clothing, you need to put those in a dry bag. Okay, Sue?
And also, if you've got any technical stuff, so if you've got a Kindle that you're taking, or if you've got electrical cables, for charging and stuff, you want to keep those dry as well, and also like passport and stuff like that. So I do recommend them, and having 2 different sizes means that you've got a bit more flexibility about how to pack it. So I know that we've done a kit list, which Freddie, I'm sure, has sent out or is sending out. It's the one item that I would say was my extra item that I took is a dress. So, I mean, you don't have to take a dress with you, obviously, but I found that I could stick this on in the evening and go out to dinner or meet with friends or whatever, and it meant that my walking clothes effectively were on the line, drying, and it didn't interfere with me. And this is the lightest dress I could find in my wardrobe, and it weighs 100 grams. So I did weigh all my dresses in my wardrobe to find the lightest one. And this is, it washes easily and it drip dries, and you don't have to iron it. So that's the other thing. So in here, I've just got a sports bra, some underwear, A neck buff, very handy for when you're walking and it's in the sun. Put it around your neck, on your head. They have a sun factor 50, I believe, built into them, and these are also you can buy at the CSJ shop and online. But they're very handy, they are. I've got a night clothes, so I've got a t-shirt, bamboo t-shirt dress here that I used to wear at night. Just in the albergue, you'll want to wear something because you are with other people, and to maintain your modesty, you need to be wearing something. So some people wear their walking clothes for the next day, which is fine. I don't particularly like that, so I just took that. And this is all within my 5 kilos. So, you know, I've put some leggings in here because I did take a pair of trousers, walking trousers with me, the zip off legs ones. But I threw them away halfway through the Camino because they weren't very comfortable. But sometimes a pair of leggings, if you're walking you know, March time or October, it does get quite chilly at night, and you might want to wear, well, one night in the Pyrenees, I wore all my clothes because I was so cold. So just it's about flexibility on your clothing. Think of layers and so you could layer up a long sleeve top under your dress or over another t-shirt. I've got a lightweight fleece here that you can layer up. It's about flexibility of your clothes and making sure they really work well together. So that's a pair of leggings there. I've just got a sports top, easy to wash and easy to dry, quick to dry. I normally walk in shorts. So these are really lightweight, these, they're Jack Wolfskin, but they're really lightweight and they dry really quickly, which is another key element you want to look for in your clothes, is things that dry quickly. I've got some socks here. I tend to use 1,000-mile socks, which are double-skinned ones. And I particularly like these lightweight Asics socks at the moment. And then a really light, thin, long-sleeved top. This, again, you could layer up over a t-shirt, under your dress if you're going out. You know, it's just another layering piece that you can do something with, and keeps you warm, but is easy to take off, and then it rolls up to nothing. So that's all my clothes. So it's not a case in the morning of what shall I wear? It will be, is it dry? Is it clean? And that's what I'm wearing. So there's no options about different types of, you know, shall I wear this outfit or that outfit? It's just a case of you wash things, you put them on the line, and if it's not quite dry, I used to pin them to the outside of my rucksack, and it used to blow dry as I was walking along the next day. So,
Sue, can I just come in there, Sue?
Yeah, sure.
Just to embellish what Sue's been saying, I took 3 sets of clothing, so I'd have 1 on and 2 in my rucksack. At the end of the first day, as Angelica said, you would have a shower, you would wash your top, underpants, socks, put on a fresh pair, hang those up to dry. In the morning, they're probably still not dry, so you would carry those wet and have a fresh set in your rucksack. At the end of the second day, you'd wash what you had on, hang up the ones from the day before and put on the 3rd set. So in the following morning, you'd have 1 dry from the previous day, another still wet, and then you just keep doing. And 3 for me was sufficient. You don't need a set for 14 sets of underpants, 14 sets of socks. 3 should be sufficient for you to get through there. Okay, Sue?
And also bear in mind that when you're traveling to your destination, wherever you're starting out on your pilgrim route, you'll be in a set of walking clothes. So that set won't be in your bag. It will be on you as you're flying there, getting the train there, or however you're getting there. So, you know, I only had 2 pairs of shorts, so I didn't take 3, and I only had 2 tops. So, and it was fine for me. But yeah, I mean, it's personal choice, obviously. You know, what's important, it was important to me to take a dress, I could have just taken another top maybe, or not taken anything extra at all. But it was just an option because I knew that we were going to Bilbao at the end. And so I wanted to wear something a bit different from just walking clothes. So that was why I took it as well. Going on to the other kit, I took a poncho, and these just roll up and they just cover your whole head, body, and your rucksack. You just put it all over you, and it probably comes down to about my mid-calf, and I'm 5'7". So these are good for when it's torrential downpour. If it's windy, you might be better off with just a thin waterproof jacket, because these would take off like a sail. And so that's just something to bear in mind. But I did use this going into Santiago. It was absolutely hammering it down for 2 days, and this kept me dry. So I was pleased I had it.
Can I add on that, Sue?
Yes, and Tony, yes.
Yes.
On
On the waterproof debate, for those of you watching who are from England, most people in Britain, England, would wear waterproof trousers and a waterproof jacket, which is what I wore going on the Camino. And then your rucksack would have a waterproof cover. But what I noticed during the Camino was that the vast majority of pilgrims, peregrinos, had these ponchos, which were lighter and a bit more flexible than 2 items of clothing and a rucksack cover. I'm still in the middle of that debate whether I switch from waterproofs to a poncho. But wherever you go there, you will see in Spain, most people use wearing ponchos, with the caveat that in high winds, who knows what will happen. Sue.
They roll up very small, the ponchos. So that's all I'm saying. They do, they do roll up small. Whereas I think my waterproof walking trousers would pack up a lot bigger than just this, and just that alone sort of thing. So going on to, in the albergue, you'll need something to sleep in. And I took a silk liner. I didn't take a sleeping bag when I've walked either of the Caminos I've been on, and I've walked in March, April and September, and it's been hot the whole time. The only time I was cold was in the Pyrenees. So these are great, actually. You will need something to sleep in, and this silk liner is just a rectangle, and it's got the pillow section all built into it. So it just is all one. Once you get in it, you're all cocooned in it. It's not the mummy shaped one. This is just a rectangular one. So it gives you a bit more freedom to move around, turn over, all of that. And again, rolls up very small and is very lightweight. I know Tony has a big thing about the Spanish blanket once.
Well, yes, I'll just briefly talk about that. It was during that Scotland trip, I'd taken a small sleeping bag, but I discovered from somebody I met that there's this thing, he called it a Spanish blanket. And I think the company's called Antecas, I think. But it's a thin sleeping bag, but rather than a zip, it's just pop studs. But it's very, very light. And I took that to Spain, didn't take up a lot of room, and it was very light. But to be quite honest, I didn't really need it because it was so warm. I would recommend just a rectangular sleeping bag liner with a section for your pillow. That should be fine.
Yeah.
I can't tell you with hand on the heart whether you can still get blankets from albergues with the COVID situation. I don't know whether Freddie could comment on that later or now. I'll leave that one to you, Freddie.
Yes, I think it is anecdotal in terms of which pilgrim hostels will be having blankets available made to pilgrims still or not. I don't think that information has been collected en masse anywhere as of yet, and I'm sure that it will change again by the time we get to the new season. So it is one of those frustrating questions that where the answer to which is it's COVID dependent. At the moment, probably I would guess that a lot of the albergues aren't making that sort of thing available to pilgrims in the way that most albergues are not making their kitchens available to pilgrims at the moment. Because
can I just add to one, because I was walking in July, somewhere some didn't. So I think I would prepare for not expecting a blanket. If you can have one, so much the better, but you can't be certain at this stage.
Yes, I wouldn't rely on it. You're right.
Yeah. So with that in mind, the advice we were giving really is based on pre-COVID experience, but with that in mind, you might want to think about some other lightweight covering, or worst case, put every item of clothing you've got on. That might work.
Yeah, it does work. Right, so when you're in the albergue, you'll need, I've got a towel here, and I've also sewn a hook on. When you go into the showers, there's normally only one hook, and you'll have your clean clothes, all your wash stuff, and a towel. And if you can just, sew a little hook onto a bit of ribbon onto your towel, and then it's all hung up. My other top tip is to have a little fold up bag that you can put your things in, all your clean clothes in your wash bag, and that also can go on your hook, and that keeps everything dry. Otherwise it all ends up on the floor sopping wet. So that was my experience. So I soon changed my tack on that sort of thing. So I'd recommend that. And also, if you're going around town, you can use that as to put all your things in when you're going around. And also, if you're doing some shopping and that, you need it. It's a really handy little thing. It weighs nothing, folds up into a little tiny pouch, and is worth its weight, shall we say. The other small item, which I would say is good in terms of thing, is a little tiny waist belt or bum bag. This one I got from Decathlon, sort of like, and it was £2, I think it was. And it's plenty big enough for putting in your pilgrim passport in here, your own passport, money, maybe a lip salve, sunscreen, anything you need to have, your phone, need to have around you. And you can just put that on you, and then you don't have to worry about anything, from a security point of view. So that's really worth, and that doesn't weigh anything. It's literally like parachute material this is made out of. So anything like that that's lightweight, that you can just access your things easily and quickly when you get into town or into the albergue, or when you're going shopping, it's real help. I did also take, let's have a look, a lightweight fleece. The thing, this is quite handy, is like it doubles up as a jacket at night time if you're cold and going out. The temperature does drop in the evening, and also if you set off from the albergue before dawn, it's also quite chilly. So something like this, which is lightweight, is worth taking, because it will keep you warm until you warm up through walking and the sun rises. And I would also say that to check on the weight, I know it seems a bit obvious, but check the weight of your each and individual item of clothing, because my husband's got a similar fleece and it weighs about 4 times the weight. So do check, different makes are different weights. So you want to choose something that's comfortable but light. Everything has to be, you want it as light as possible. Don't have anything that's cotton, or go for bamboo fabric is really lightweight, or obviously these are synthetic, but you can just be aware that if you're changing up your kit or you're buying new kit to take with you, do check the weight of each item. And online, sometimes they also have the drying times of these items, so do just have a look at that if you're interested in how long your item of clothing is going to take to dry. But it's just really handy to know, because you don't want a pair of trousers that take like 4 days to dry. That's not what you want. So that's just another pointer there. You also need a good hat. And this one is very attractive on. I won't model it because it's that attractive, but it does keep the sun off the back of your neck, your ears, and it's got meshy around it, so it's very lightweight and lets the air breathe around your head. Just a few more things to go on toiletries and things. Everything now you can get as a mini option. So you can have your favorite face cream, and that comes with in a mini sort of size. All of these in here are all miniature versions of it. Boots do miniature deodorants and stuff like that. And I tend to use a shampoo bar, solid bar. It just makes life easier, really. But little mini toothbrushes, toothpaste, and hairbrush, and right down to this is a mini mascara. It's tiny. So everything, you know, there's lip salves in here. You can just either decant it, or you'll find that whatever range you like for your skin or face or body, you'll find they do a miniature version of it. So do check out the beauty counters if you want to get your own brands, sort of like your favorite brands. And with that, I would say that a lot of products now, I mean, I like a nice face cream, and so I would want the SPF built into the face cream. So there are lots of different makes now. This is just a L'Oreal one that's quite cheap. You can get that from the supermarket, but it's got an SPF 50 built into it. And this one's more expensive, but this also has an SPF 50 built into it. So it means that when you put your face cream on in the morning, you don't have to worry about an additional sunscreen to go on top. And then you can just take your regular sunscreen for your arms and legs, shoulders, back of your neck, that sort of thing. It just makes life a bit easier.
Sue, just to add on, there's also shops in Spain.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, there is. You can buy anything you want in Spain, or actually, yeah, you can in Spain. In Portugal, you wouldn't be able to buy clothing. On the Portuguese route, I didn't see any clothing lines, or any shops of any sort, actually, walking shops, until we hit Spain. But they do have fantastic pharmacies, and they either have the pharmacies that deal with all the medical stuff, which is like blisters, feet, you know, antibiotics, that sort of thing. And then they have the pharmacies that deal with all the beauty products. So you can buy whatever, wherever you are. So yeah, you can. You're quite right, Angelica. One of my favorite things is my travel plug. So this is a worldwide travel plug, and it's on the top is 4 USB ports. So it just means that when you'll go to charge your I don't know, your watch, your phone, whatever you've got, you can just plug it in. And generally speaking, you've always got a few spares. So if any other pilgrims need to charge their things, they're really grateful that they've found somebody who's got a charger that they can plug their cables into too. And yeah, so this just it has been a great thing to have. I've also got some blister prevention tape here. I came across this. I haven't used it because I don't know what it's like, but I came across it on one of the routes. There was a lady had this all over her feet, and I thought, oh gosh, we were only on the first day, and I was thinking, crikey, she's not doing well with her feet. But these are blister prevention tapes, and they just come out like this on a roll, and you put them on. They last about 2 or 3 days, and so you can wash with them and everything, they stay on, and it stops the friction. So, you know, there might be something, it's called KT tape, it's called. So if you think you've got sensitive feet, or if you haven't worn your shoes in as much as you thought you should have done before you go on the pilgrim route, then it might be something that's worth taking. You don't have to take the whole roll. You could just tear off a few strips and just put them in your first aid kit, which I've got here. So that's just a first aid kit of extra things. Do also remember to take all your tablets that you might take with you, spare glasses, so that you don't, in case you break them on your first day. yeah, sunglasses, all of that sort of stuff is what you'll need. I've also got a roll up. This is a water bottle that you can just fill up, and then when it's not in use, it just rolls up to nothing. I've used this a lot. I've used this for the last 3 years, this water bottle, and it's still going strong. Generally speaking, if you run out of water, you can knock on anyone's door. I mean, I've been to building sites before and filled up with water. I've knocked on people's doors and they've given us ice water. On the Portuguese route, there was even somebody had set up one of those like office water coolers at the bottom of their drive for pilgrims, along with a basket of oranges. You know, people are willing to help, so don't ever feel self-conscious about, oh gosh, I've run out of water, what am I going to do? I forgot to fill up when I was having a coffee, because people are always wanting to help you and support you, so don't ever worry about that. The only other things I've got on my trusty table here is a survival blanket. That's just something that, it doesn't weigh anything, and I just think if somebody's hurt themselves and they're cold, then this could be very useful to them. So it's just really not necessarily for me, but if somebody else gets injured. And then also you'll need your pilgrim books. So these are route books. I've always gone for the thinner one, and you can download these. So if you didn't want to take a physical book with you, then by all means you can download it. On the first pilgrim route we did on the Portuguese route, I had a book and so did my husband have a book. I was more worried in case I got lost or he lost me, because he wanders off sometimes. So at least he'd have his own book. But then we met this German pilgrim lady, and she didn't have a book at all. And she was trying to see where she could stay the night. So we gave her one of our books, you see. So it was just, that was quite nice then, that he didn't have to carry his anymore. So, and she, you know, I did apologize for it being in English and not in any other language, but she was able to easily read English, because all German people can speak English. So yeah, you can do your pilgrim route book, and these are very good for, they have maps going around the town. So I found the worst thing was when you go into a town, quite a big town, it's difficult to find where it is you're staying. If you've got one of these books, they just show you the actual town, and then you can work out where you've got to go, and also, more importantly, where to find your way back to carry on walking. So that was, apart from a pair of sandals, I did have a pair of walking sandals that I took with me. I haven't got them on the table because they're upstairs, but and I'm going to upgrade those to a lighter pair, but they were very handy if you have got blisters on your feet and you need your feet just to cool down a bit, then having a pair of walking sandals to put on is a real godsend. Also, it means that you've got something else to put on when you're in the albergue, because they don't like you wearing walking boots around inside. So, and I also took trekking poles. So that was that. Have we covered everything? Tony, have we covered everything?
Yes, I'm just going to come in on that, on a few things.
Okay.
The most important thing that you need to think about when you're preparing what to take is your footwear, because you can have a nice light rucksack, have everything else tickety-boo, but if you've got brand new boots on that you've never worn, you probably have blisters inside the first hour. So the most important thing that you'll be prepared as your preparation is what you're going to put on your feet. Now, I can't give you any pointers because it's all individual choice, but you need to have walked in them before, many times, I hope, so you know if they're comfortable, if they give you blisters or not, whether your feet are susceptible to blisters. Some people's are, some aren't. So you need to have a pair of boots, or preferably, in my case, what I call trail shoes. They're not waterproof, they're Merrell shoes, and they're sort of, the air gets through them, keeps my feet cool. Because I found in boots in the hot weather, my feet were on fire. They were just awful, really uncomfortable. So I wear trail shoes. And as Sue has indicated, at the end of the day, when you've had your shower and you might be in need of some rehydration in the local hostelry, it's nice to get out of your walking footwear into something else. And in my Camino, I took some Crocs, which were great, but Crocs are really bulky. They're not very heavy, but they're really bulky. So I now have swapped them for some sandals, which if the worst happened and my walking shoes fell apart, I could probably do a day's walking in my sandals and then get some more shoes, because as has already been indicated, in Spain, there seems to be plenty of shops to buy what you need. You could probably set off from home in your walking gear and get to Spain, set off, and probably buy what you need on the way if you wanted to be really tough and do it that way. So yes, I can't stress the importance of having comfortable boots or shoes, preferably, and find socks that work for you. I use 1,000 Miler socks. Not everybody does that, but make sure it all works for you. If you are the sort of person that is susceptible to blisters, find out how to treat them. We can give you lots of ideas about zinc oxide tape or Compede or various other bits and pieces, but it doesn't work for everybody. So find out what works for you, how to treat them. The best way to treat blisters is to avoid them, in my opinion. If your feet are getting warm, stop, take your boots off, dry your feet, get some air to them, and just pay attention to your feet. Because if you're doing a long Camino, 500 miles, the one thing that's going to get you to the end is your feet. And with that in mind, I'd like to just remind everybody that if you're going on your Camino, it starts when you lock the front door and you set off. From that moment, you are a pilgrim on your Camino. You don't turn into one when you arrive at the St. Jean or wherever it starts. You start from home. And a good tip, as you're probably going by flight, probably your rucksack is in the hold. So you want to be wearing your footwear that you're going to walk in, have them on your feet, your clothing that you're going to wear for the first day, because we perhaps, I don't know how many people we've got here, but probably somebody can tell us a story about lost baggage or something. So if you've got your boots on and your kit and that you need, if it came to it, you could still set off and buy stuff as you went along. What else do I need to touch on? I think Sue's covered that. And I would just reiterate again, weight. Weight is the most important thing that you can think about when you're packing your rucksack. What you'll probably do is put everything in there that you think you need, and then I recommend you weigh it. And then when you've realized it's too heavy, then start thinking about what you're now going to take out and leave at home. And be assured that you don't need as much as you think you do. As long as you've got your credit card and your wallet and understand how to order a couple of beers, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, Tony, just to add on that one, if in doubt, don't take it. That's my rule.
Yes, that's true.
And just to add on there, when you were saying about the luggage, I tend to travel with hand luggage only with my pack, from the size it fits. And somebody asked, I think I see a question in the chat about walking sticks. So from the UK, it's okay to have walking sticks and hand luggage. The problem arises when you come back from Spain. I think in Santiago, the airport has an agreement with the airline, so you can get the sticks into check-in luggage, but obviously you take the risk of that not appearing again.
Well, on that point, I've always put my rucksack in the hold, and I've packed it in such a way that there's no straps hanging off and so on. It's all now tightly bound with the poles up tightly on the outside. Having said that, I have bought another set of poles that fold down so they're only about a foot long, and they probably fit inside the rucksack.
Yeah, that's what I do. So for the way back, I check it in. And for the way out, I do it in hand luggage only. So that seems to work. I hope that answers the question. Was it John?
Yep, I think we've got, one thing Sue didn't mention. I'm very surprised because Sue's normally on the ball on this. I've talked about washing your stuff in the afternoon and then probably carrying it on your rucksack next day. I got a little mesh bag. It was actually a stuff sack for a duvet jacket, but I use it to put my wet clothing in and hang it on the outside of the rucksack. Something like that is very handy because it won't dry overnight. The next morning your stuff will be wet. What do you do with it? And you don't want it inside with your other stuff. Okay, Freddie, we're over to you.
Fabulous. Wasn't that fantastic? Huge amount to take in there, and with some gorgeous photography taken by Angelica herself. For those of you that don't know, she's an accomplished photographer. Maybe some of you had heard some of that before, maybe some of you hadn't. As we've said, as we keep saying, these are all suggestions from experienced pilgrims, the 4 pilgrims that we have here. How you do your Camino is entirely up to you, and the decisions that you make are your own. But we hope that there's been some good advice and tips nestled in everything that we've heard here today. Now, for those of you joining us live, this is your opportunity to ask us any questions you can think of to our experts. So continue to submit them through the chat. We do have a collection stored up for you. So I'm going to try and take them in order, and my deputy Kimberly will point out any that I have missed, hopefully. But to start off, we have a question from Gwen. How many albergues are anticipated to be open next year? We walked in 2016 and we were spoiled for choice. Anybody want to have a stab at that one?
I think I'll answer for everybody with no idea.
I think the majority are open. I think the majority have opened, and it can only get better. The problem has been so far as the capacity rather than closure. As it stands, from what I gather, at least in Galicia, they can have to 100% provided you show them a vaccine certificate and so on. So I think the bottom line will be there is no shortage of accommodation. The capacity might be the issue, but that will change again. So nobody will know for sure. The other option there always is, there is not just albergues. I mean, there's private albergues and so on, but there's also pensiones, hostels and hotels. So I saw a question earlier on about booking ahead and to ring. Yes, you can of course do that, certainly with private accommodation. That's probably the easiest to call ahead the day, or some of them are on booking.com. But I wouldn't have thought there's a shortage of accommodation.
Yeah, I would say that, Gwen, at the moment, it seems to be going in the right direction, as Angelica says. For a long time during the autumn, the statistic that was being bandied about was 50% of albergues on the Camino Frances were open, but that 50% had to reduce their capacities by as many as 50, 70%. It does depend at the moment, not just what route you're on, but the region of Spain that you're in. So it's all quite complicated at the moment, and the restrictions do have an impact on albergue openings and hotels and the rest of it. Hopefully we'll know a lot more by spring, which is when I'm guessing most of you will be planning your Caminos or afterwards. But yes, at the moment it is a bit in flux, but it is going in the right direction, and it is creeping back to what we would expect of a normal amount of accommodation available, which is plenty. Lovely. Okay. Yes, so Angelica touched on Ron's question there about securing a bed the day before. Does one need to phone ahead to book places? Can you not just stop along the way? Again, it's sort of a COVID relevant question, Ron. Normally, yes, so for a lot of routes you can just rock up to a place and you're probably going to find a bed and it'll probably be okay, which is lovely. It gives you lots of freedom, lots of spontaneity. At the moment, because of COVID, that hasn't been the case because establishments have needed to regulate the numbers of people staying there and ensure social distancing and all of this. So at the moment, at least, I think it is still advisable, recommendable, again, depending on where you are, to book ahead. But fingers crossed, that becomes less the case in springtime. If anybody else has an answer to that.
I would just say it depends where you go. Because if you go, you know you're ending up in a city with, I don't know, 20, 30 hotels, and you probably just take your pick, basically. If you know you're going somewhere where there's only one place, then I would book ahead.
Yeah.
And also most of the albergues are on booking.com, or you can always use Airbnb if you're really short on accommodation. They also cover a lot of the Camino routes as well.
Yes. Lovely. Question from Lawrence. Are there sufficient charging points in the hostels for tech?
Well, there is plugs. So there are plugs in the albergues. So that's why I would recommend that you just take something that not only, you can plug this in and it has your own USB ports on the top here. I've never had a problem finding a charging point, a plug socket. I've never had a problem.
I think all I would add to that is that if the albergue was full or had a lot of people in there probably wouldn't be enough electrical sockets, which is why we recommend these adapters that have got lots of USB ports and so on. I've never had a problem, but I could see that if there was more people in the room, it might become an issue.
And if I can add a practical note, never, never, never leave an albergue without your phone in your hand. I say this from experience working as an hospitalera and needing to get a taxi to pick a pilgrim up at the next stop to bring them back to my albergue so they could pick up their phone and then take the taxi back to their stop. You don't ever want to do that. Just make it a habit that as you walk out the door, what am I doing? I have my phone in my hand.
Next, Freddie.
Guys. Yes, so Angelica again has touched on John's question about taking walking poles as hand luggage on the plane, but Sophie has asked, what about taking walking poles on trains?
No problem. Not to my
imagine
knowledge.
it would be fine. Yeah.
The only thing I would add that, well, it was more in the Alps that the French were quite funny about the not having, if you didn't have the stoppers on the end of the poles, those sort of spike things. But I wouldn't have thought there'd be a problem on the Camino with trains.
Yeah, should be all good. Alexandra, I think, has the next question. She says, where can I get a pilgrim passport? Great question.
Well,
you can actually get it from many places. What the volunteers are laughing because they're expecting me to say, you can and should get your pilgrim passport from the Confraternity of St. James. But you can get one in reality from your local association. If you're not based in the UK, the national associations normally carry their own. You can also get a pilgrim passport from your start place, usually. If you're starting somewhere common like Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port or Porto or Ferrol, you can usually pick one up from the local cathedral or the local tourist office, or the pilgrim office in the case of Saint-Jean. But yes, you can get it in advance from us, and we do ship internationally. Anyone else got anything to say about that? Or have I covered it? No?
I think you covered that beautifully, Freddie.
I have something to say, though. I'm a bit of a geek, and when you get your passport from the CSJ, then they send you this nice letter that says, when you get back, if you want to fill out this form and let us know, then we'll record it here. And then you get this nice letter back saying congratulations and well done. And somehow that was as important to me as anything else. It was like my local association was welcoming me home, putting me on record. I'm part of it now. So I just have to say there was something kind of special about having that CSJ credential. There you go. You never knew.
Sophie again asks, sort of answered this, but what is the best footwear to take for springtime?
Personal preference, whatever works for you. That's my answer. Whatever is comfortable. You always add a pair of mini gaiters if you know you're going to cross the odd bit of muddy stuff or so on.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the terrain that you're expecting. But yes, I mean, Tony says, and others agree that trail shoes work very well in many cases. If you wanted a bit of ankle support, if you're worried, then something with walking boots would be a good option for you. And others actually walk in sandals and they swear by sandals. So it's a personal thing.
I think just to add to that, Freddie, I would again reiterate what I said some minutes ago, is that you really need to go out in whatever you're planning on walking in. You need to have gone out and tried them. If you're in a environment which isn't going to be the same type of weather as it will be on the Camino, then that's slightly different. You know, if you're living in Alaska or somewhere, which incidentally I met a pilgrim in Santiago who'd come from flat Alaska. So I wasn't being facetious. Yeah. So really, it's about trying what works for you, as you've all said.
Also, I must just add that in the springtime, it can still be really hot. We walked through on the Portuguese route in the springtime in March, and it was 25 degrees. So don't assume it's going to be cold like it is here, you know, in the UK. It's really warm out there, or it can be. So do check your long range weather forecast if you can, to just give you a bit of a heads up, but do practice walking in whatever footwear you're going to walk in. Just choose something that's comfy.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Peter asks, it would be good, well, he says, would be good to understand what products are used for washing items.
Shampoo.
Yeah, shampoo.
Whether it's your body or your clothes.
Yep.
You go, just a bar of shampoo. And you can just scrub away at your clothes. It's great.
And most albergues have some kind of laundry soap. I'm a fan of laundry soap.
Great. Michael, no. Sophie, sorry. What do you take? I keep losing you. What do you take to wash your clothes with? Soap. Do albergues provide things? Yes, sometimes they do. Michael, what about the refuges in France along the Le Puy route? Michael, let's see if I can find you. What exactly do you? What do you mean exactly by what about the refuges? Whether they're open or?
You might need to unmute him, I think.
I suppose in a way I'm thinking of going back and doing the Puy route, and all of everything we've spoken about has really been focused on the Camino Francés and the Portuguese, you know, and I try and learn some French. I'm just really meaning, has anybody got much information about how many of the refuges in France along the Le Puy route are open, and how, you know, the approach to kind of, well, having to book and stuff like that?
Yes. So I've spoken to a couple of pilgrims, and it is only a couple this year, who have walked the Le Puy route. As you probably know, the accommodation in France is sparser at the best of times than it is in Spain and Portugal. So particularly at the moment, it is essential to book ahead. A lot of the places have closed down. Again, there doesn't seem to be a list that exists at the moment of what is and isn't open. But their experience, they were fine. They managed it and they had a nice time, but they did need to plan before they left where they were staying every night. And that may, you know, I hope that isn't the case for much longer, but I would prepare for hope for the best, prepare for the worst. In terms of if you are going anytime soon, I would check out accommodation. I would do some good research on that before you set off, because you wouldn't want to be left in the lurch. Is that helpful?
That's helpful. Yeah, I mean, it's only a sort of initial question, and I might actually do the Camino Frances instead, but you know.
Sure,
thank
yes.
you.
Do get in touch with us. I can put you in touch with volunteers who have walked the pre-route fairly recently. I could probably dig out the email address of the one that I spoke to who's done it this year as well. That goes for everybody. If you are thinking of doing a route that hasn't really been touched on today, or isn't being touched on in a future masterclass, I do have a network of pilgrims that I can put you in touch with, that have all sorts of experience of all sorts of routes at all sorts of times. So that's available to you. Peter Moore, what about earplugs? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I have taken earplugs before, but they tend to fall out of my ears. But and I don't think it blocks out people that snore, I'm afraid. So yeah, that's a personal thing, personal choice, whether you take them or not, or whether you think they work or don't, or even if they stay in your ears. I don't know how they stay in your ears. Maybe I didn't screw them in enough, but yeah, that's a personal thing. You always get people that snore, and no matter what you do, you always hear them. I don't know what else to say.
Tony, Anne, any experience of earplugs, or just grin and bear it?
I think they're irritating. You know, I'm actually old school. I'm an over the ear headphone guy. I don't like to put things in my ears, but Sue's absolutely right. It's not going to make any difference. It's for show.
I can see a hand waving from Mary. Mary, if you want to unmute yourself, you got something to add on that? Struggling with the tech.
Lips are moving, but no sounds coming.
Try again. There we go.
Am I unmuted?
You are
Yes.
unmuted.
Oh, you don't want to hear me anyway. Earplugs, absolutely essential. I don't even travel away for the weekend without earplugs. No, when I discovered earplugs on the Camino, changed my Camino totally. Absolutely brilliant. While I'm unmuted, can I say two other things?
No.
Yes.
I love all your bags and things, Sue, but if you just put a black dustbin liner inside your rucksack, that makes it waterproof. So, you know, if your rucksack gets wet, whatever's inside it stays dry because you've got a black dustbin liner in there. And the other thing, did you ever have one of those elasticated washing lines?
I have, yes, yeah.
You didn't show that either.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
They're really good.
Yeah, they are really good.
And
yeah.
I love the fact you got your mascara with you, because I believe every pilgrim has to take a luxury with them. And I used to have a little bottle of perfume before and after, and a lipstick. So I love your mascara. Right, I'm not going to say any more.
Thanks, Mary.
But you were...
Just goes to show, some people like earplugs, some people don't. So there you go. Maybe try it out if you can. Test it, see if it agrees with you. Alexandra asks, what about travel insurance? Just normal travel insurance?
My experience of it is that normal travel insurance does cover trekking. It's more on to what height you go up to. So it would depend on what height the route was on the Pyrenees, which I don't think it would be over 2,500 meters. But you just need to check your terms and conditions of your travel insurance. And
Yes,
how long are you going for as well?
Yes, that one is worth looking at and researching a little bit, especially now that we have Brexited. If you're in the UK, I don't know. Who was going to ask that question? Alexandra. Yes, worth doing some research on that. Peter asks, what are people's views on rest days along the Frances? How many should they be taken or not? Now, Peter, some of this might be covered in the Camino Frances Masterclass that we've got coming up in a couple of weeks. But just quickly, rest days in general, Sue, Tony, and Anne, what are your thoughts?
I think it's essential, particularly if it's a town with a load of good bars in it.
I think go by how your body's feeling. If you've arrived in a town and it looks a great place to spend an extra day, spend an extra day. You know, the whole point is you don't need to battle on through. It's not a route march. You're not on a time constraint. Well, hopefully you've got a bit of flexibility on time. So enjoy the towns where you want to enjoy the towns. So if you feel like your feet are hurting, your back's sore, whatever, and you know you're going into Pamplona or something, it's a great place to spend another day, to have a fully look round everything, really immerse yourself in the atmosphere. So yeah, the extra days, bring them on. I'm all for it.
The other thing is you should, if you read ahead and find out that maybe there's an interesting site that's off the route that might mean extra walking and you don't want to commit to extra walking, spend the day, get a car, take it out there, go view the thing. I did that on the Ingles and I was delighted because I had the opportunity to see something I didn't have the energy to walk to. So yeah, take your time, see whatever you need to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, we've got questions coming in thick and fast. We've got Peter again. Are there any tips to give with regards to getting to your start points when traveling by plane or train for the Frances, traveling to Biarritz or via Madrid? Again, this might be covered in the Frances Masterclass, Peter. I think the most common way is people fly to Biarritz and then they get a shuttle bus to Bayonne train station, and then they get a train to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, where they usually set off from. But there are plenty of ways of doing that, and we might cover those in a couple of weeks' time. John has asked about a Camino starting in Almeria, which is part of the Camino Mozárabe network. John, I'd probably suggest emailing me. I can put you in touch with somebody who has done that relatively recently, and I can tell you that I know somebody is planning to write a guidebook for us for the CSJ on that route. So depending on when you're thinking of going, that might come out just in time for you. But yes, sounds like a beautiful Camino. Jealous. Gwen has said the Le Puy route has fewer hostels and further between. Yeah, I think that's right. She also says that the anti-COVID app is essential for the Le Puy route. I assume that means sort of, where's Gwen? There's Gwen. Do you mean sort of in terms of getting
access to anything? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I think that's sensible.
It's required.
Yes. And Sophie, how is best to budget along the route? What do you reckon?
Sue, now's your chance. Tell them about your magic card.
Oh.
Your Revolut.
Yeah, I mean, I use a Revolut card. I mean, I take some cash out, but generally wherever I can, I use a Revolut card, which is like a card that you can put, say, well, whatever currency you use, your home currency. So I put sterling onto it, and then the card allows me via an app to transfer it into any currency around the world. So I could then switch it over to euros, and then I just use it like a normal tap and go card in that country.
Yeah, you get a preferential rate with it, which is why it's attractive.
Yeah, it's a live LIBOR rate, so you don't pay any fixed charges. There's no charges through any currency, and yeah, you can switch it back again and just use it back in the UK. You'll take it to the States, use it over there. It's easy. So that's what I would do without taking lots of cash. You don't want to be carrying lots of cash with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in terms of budget, always budget to spend more the closer you get to Santiago. When you start out on the Portuguese route, on any route, pick a route, any route. As you get closer and closer to Santiago, it gets more expensive. So don't imagine that you're going to spend, if you spend 30 euro a day in the beginning of the Frances, for instance, you'll probably be spending more by the time you get past Sobrero or Sarria.
Lovely, thank you. Alexandra asks, what is the route like during June in terms of weather and accommodation availability? Alexandra, let me just clarify which route you're talking about. I'm guessing you mean the Frances. Where are you, Alexandra? Yes, Frances. So what is the Frances like in June in terms of weather and accommodation?
I don't know, I've only done it in September. Sorry, it was hot in September.
But all I've heard about is avoiding July and August because it's so hot. But I wouldn't imagine it's much cooler in June either.
Yes, I think expect heat. July and August are typically the busiest months on the Camino Frances, largely because that is when the students are on holiday. The Spanish students, that is, and I guess students from around the world. So yes, probably heat. Accommodation. No, it's waving at me. One sec, Mary. In terms of accommodation, it is a popular time to go. It's getting to the height of the season, so it probably will be busy. And as Anne says, with regard to budgeting, the same applies for this. The closer that you get to Santiago, the busier it'll get. So I would say my general recommendation for people who aren't sure is maybe book your first couple of nights of accommodation if you are worried, just so you know that you've got some of the first couple of days. And then once you are on the ground, you'll get a much better sense of how busy it is, whether people are having to book ahead. Things might be different next year. It might be a bumpy year, who knows? And then you can take a view once you're there about whether you need to book in advance at all, whether you need to book in advance 1 day ahead, 2 days ahead, or if you need to plan a bit more than that. If you unmute yourself, Mary, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I've learned how to do it now. I'm getting clever. I have walked in June on the Frances. It was absolutely glorious. The weather was lovely. We didn't have any problems finding places to stay. Whether that's going to have changed now, obviously one doesn't know. But remember that a lot of people will be walking to arrive in Santiago for St. James's Day on the 25th of July. So it may be busier. And also because we're still in a holy year. So if you're looking at the coming year, it might be a lot busier and more difficult to find places to stay. But it's really beautiful. The flowers and the countryside is absolutely glorious. And the other thing we were talking about earlier about having rest days, that sometimes you actually don't need a rest day. You think you do, but when you get to the place and you prepare for the next day, you can do all you want to do having arrived in a place and seeing it and then going on. But if you do want 2 nights, make sure that the albergues will let you stay for 2 nights, because certainly in the past it was that you could only stay in the albergue for 1 night. So if you want 2 nights, you've maybe got to stay somewhere different.
It's Alexandra's just put in the chat that she's planning on going in 2023. So hopefully by then it will be back to what we regard as normal. And Alexandra, so fingers crossed for you then. You've got plenty of time to plan. The question, only time will tell. Rob asks, Sue, what was the volume of your backpack?
It was 33. I think it
33 litres.
33 to 40.
Yeah, 33 to 40.
What that means is that the main compartment is 33 litres. The additional bit is the pockets and sacks on the outside. But certainly you don't need a rucksack bigger than 40. The one I use is 35.
Yeah, I think Good advice. John has asked any additional advice for late autumn Camino. He's starting his Camino in November. Anne, you might be the best person to, I know that you're a winter pilgrim, are you not?
Yes, it's my favorite time to walk, and Advent is, Advent begins 11/21. So it's absolutely my favorite. The one thing that you have to pay attention to, other than the obvious, which is you need more layers, you have to have a sleeping bag. The one thing to pay attention to is the number of hours of daylight, because the sun will come up at 8:45 in the morning and set at 5:30. So if you like to sleep in, you can sleep in till 7:30, get a leisurely breakfast, and take off as the sun is coming up, which is not the case in June and July. But you also have to know where you're going so that you're off the trail by 5, because and then you bring a headlamp and you're good. Yeah, the other thing is there's a website called Aprinca, APRINCA, I believe it's .es, that will tell you which albergues are open, which are closed, which are opened but closed now, which are open but closed on Tuesdays, and it has all of their phone numbers. So if you're not comfortable or your Spanish isn't really good and you don't feel comfortable phoning ahead, wherever you are staying, you can ask them to phone ahead for you. You do need to know where you're going, but it's glorious.
Lovely, thank you. Zoom user, the mysteriously named Zoom user, asks any tips on safely walking the isolated areas? I have one tip. If you have a smartphone, there is an app called Alert Cops. We talk about it a lot. It's great. It's free to download, and if you have it on your phone, then you can nominate a person at home as your emergency contact, and that person will be able to look at your whereabouts at all times, whenever they like. So you have one person looking out for you. It also links you to the local emergency services. You can ring them, you can chat with them. If you feel unsafe, or if you want to let somebody local know where you are, or yeah, if you're in any kind of doubt, or if you're afraid in any way, you have instant access to the emergency services. And I've spoken to people who have used Alert Cops to report the fact that they're walking on their own, or reported some dodgy behavior that they've witnessed, and the emergency services have been extremely quick to respond. So I would say that, first of all, I don't know if you guys have any tips on kind of walking alone in more remote areas.
No, just be aware of your surroundings and just be mindful of the fact that don't put your headphones on and listen to music. Just to be a bit more aware of what's happening around you.
Yeah. We have 2 minutes left, so we're going to get through these last few questions if we can. If you have other questions and we don't get around to them today, just email them to me, and I'll make sure that you get an answer after today. I think Tony, let's try and do Tony's question. Has anyone got experience with the baggage transfer services?
Yeah, I have. I've done that before. It's really good. It's really easy. They give you an envelope and you fill it out, put your €3 in or whatever it is, attach it to your bag, and you just ring up. They speak English, and they just say, take it to this cafe or this bar, and you just take it there. It's all secure, and when you get to your destination, there's your bag. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fine. It's good. Yeah,
very commonly used. So yes, do avail yourself of the services available. Camino Fácil, Jacotrans, Correos, Spanish Postal Service also do a very good service for you. So yeah, do check those out if that's right for you. Okay, I think that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much to all of you for coming to our first ever Camino Masterclass. And of course, to our brilliant panelists, Angelica and Sue and Tony. They are all volunteers and they put in their own time and energy into providing some first-rate advice and guidance for your Camino. We hope that it has been useful. And just remember, still suggestions, how you do your Camino is totally up to you. Tune in again in a couple of weeks' time when we'll be hearing from celebrated Camino author John Briley, listening to his take on the most popular of all Camino routes, the Camino Frances. That's at 7 p.m. GMT on Monday, the 15th of November. Otherwise, do check out the rest of our events, from coffee mornings to virtual albergues, to wine bars, to book clubs at caminopilgrim.org/events. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. See you soon. Stay safe and buen camino.
Buen camino.